Hey cats, it's your midsole man Eddbud here, back with a shoe review for you, one that I've purchased with my own cash, the New Balance FuelCell SC Trainer version 3. 195 quid this one set me back, though the retail price is 229. I mean, that's more expensive than some race shoes these days. How does this one hold up in training over my testing? Let's find out. Thanks for joining me on the channel, people. It's always appreciated. Do hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up like. If you want to help support the channel on a more ad hoc basis, do drop us a super thanks as well, and make sure you comment to help out with the YouTube algorithm. Dankeschön. Review today of the New Balance FuelCell SC Trainer version 3. In the sample size, there's 40mm of heel stack in this one, but I've got about 43 in my UK size 11, US size 11.5. Around about 37mm up front, making for a 6mm drop. Decent weight in this one, about 311 grams, 11 ounces on the money. That's staggeringly light, really, considering supposedly a trainer, and you've got this amount of stack in the midsole. For those after some significant surface area, you're going to get it here in the SC Trainer 3. I've got about 12.5 centimeters at the widest point in the forefoot, and about 9.4 centimeters at the widest point in the heel. So overall, there's a lot of landing platform here. Super soft foam in this one. It's fuel cell stuff. It's slightly sort of rubbery in its feel. It comes over with a 22 Shore A durometer reading, which is ridiculously soft. One of the softest I've tested out for sure. We do have a carbon plate here to stabilize proceedings, and I think New Balance are kind of aiming this one as a long distance, sort of more durable plated trainer. As usual, we'll start with the upper first. I'm finding this one a much better fit than the overly baggy Rebel 4 that I tried earlier in the year. Wasn't keen on that shoe at all. It was far too generous. This one's a little bit more tuned in for my foot, certainly, which is sort of narrow to normal width. I'm not having to cinch the laces in a mind-bending amount to get a good lockdown here in the SC Trainer 3. I haven't got too much creasing of the upper materials either. The Rebel 4 was just completely unfit for purpose, for my foot at least. I know a lot of you out there really enjoyed that one, but this is a lot more sort of traditional, I suppose, in its approach. A refined fit here with some slightly thicker upper materials. I think it's a good balance, really, between like what you'd expect in a race shoe and what you'd expect in a trainer. There are some quite considerable overlays here, especially with the N New Balance logo there on the lateral side, and there's another smaller one there on the medial side up near the final eyelets. Overall, it's quite a breathable upper. I wouldn't suggest it's the most breathable, but certainly in the warmer summer weather that we've got in the UK, I didn't really have any issues with the foot getting too hot. There is a lot more padding here in the heel area of the shoe, and there's a traditional heel counter here that stretches a fair way around the heel. There's some additional overlays here and this sort of triangular pattern as well to provide a little bit more structure. Not sure we need all of the considerable overlays there around the heel. Just add in some extra weight, really, without any more gain. They're calling the upper materials Phantom Fit here, and I think it's a little bit more appropriate, I suppose, for the SC Trainer 3. Quite stretchy laces. They do seem to work reasonably well. I haven't bothered with a runner's knot on this one. I've just laced the shoe up to the final eyelets and tightened it and achieved a really good lockdown. No heel slip whatsoever. The tongue is partially padded through the center section and also partially gusseted as well. That helps to keep it central, and I've not experienced any tongue slide as of yet. Certainly a little less spacious feeling than the Rebel 4 up front, and it's a big improvement over the V1 version of the shoe that I tried out a while back. I really didn't get on with that shoe at all. The upper just was a total failure for me. This is much, much better. That has been a weak point, in fact, on several New Balance shoes that I've tested out over the last few years. Is it true to size in terms of the upper? I would suggest that with New Balance, I am somewhere in the middle there. If I could get an 11.25, that would be ideal. Again, I'm finding myself with a size 11 here, and I guess with a thinner sock, it's absolutely fine. Though the 11.5 in New Balance shoes always feels just too long, and there's just too much space there. So I'm happy that I got the 11 this time around. Whether that helps you make your decision, I don't know. I just seem to fall somewhere in the middle of an 11 and an 11.5 in New Balance shoes every time. Perhaps I would suggest that if you're close to a store that does stock these, do go in and try it out for yourself. Or perhaps if you're able to, order both in maybe like a typical size and like a half size up, although that could make for a very expensive transaction. Reasonable width up front, it doesn't taper in too much on the lateral side, and I think I'll give it a 2.6 out of 3 for the upper after my initial runs. I think they could get rid of the nonsense overlays and things, just make it that little bit lighter. I did though experience a little bit of rubbing on the lateral side of the ball of my ankle here, a little bit irritating. With a plaster it made it okay, but not absolutely dialed in for me. Midsole now. Midsole wise, in operation, it's not quite as soft as I expected it to be, this one. Super low durometer scores only tell so much of the story. It's by no means firm, but I think the plate here is supplying a very specific level of rigidity. I think that's no doubt going to appeal to people that are running at like a steady cruising sort of pace. Don't think this one's ever going to be like a super upfront fast shoe. Definitely aimed at the masses if you want some stability there, but still a nice soft ride. Marathon and long runs written all over it, this one. It kind of fits into that Hoka CeeLo X1 category, especially in terms of price as well. Similar weights here between the two shoes and midsole stacks as well. I think I'll probably end up doing a more comprehensive comparison between those two. I don't feel that the rocker in the forefoot is quite as aggressive as the Hoka model here in the SC Trainer 3. Perhaps a good option or tool to utilise for your longer runs. Maybe you need the versatility of upping the pace a little bit at times during those runs for some intervals. There's a nice rubbery squash from the nitrogen infused TPU material that we've got here. Not perhaps as soft as the Rebel 2 I tried out a few years ago. In fact, I've always found fuel cell material almost too soft for my liking. I think this is a really good balance here. Doesn't perhaps feel like you're sinking in as per the RC Elite V2. A little bit more propulsive here, and perhaps that's down to the drop that I really seem to enjoy. That 6 or 5 mil drop just seems to work for me. As I mentioned, I did experience a little bit of rubbing here around the sort of lateral portion of the ball of my ankle. That was down to sinking into the shoe. The insoles that are supplied with the SC Trainer V3 are just sort of throwaway really. They're so thin, they don't do anything. It's more like a sock liner, I suppose. I did replace those with a slightly thicker Nike like Spenco one. That seemed to alleviate the problem somewhat, but because of the very soft nature of the shoe, you are going to sink into it, and that may be a problem for you too. Just seems to rise up a little bit too much just around this portion of the shoe. If it was cut down a little bit, like we get in the Pegasus 41 for example, I wouldn't have had a problem. I think having a slightly thicker insole just elevated my foot up and away from that problem area. Though for a shoe that retails at 229 quid, that seems a bit off to have to do that straight out the box. I found these fine over a range of paces, around about 8 minutes 30 per mile, very easy effort for me, right up to a half marathon effort around 6 minutes 50 per mile. Though I do think the very soft nature of the shoe and also the slightly weightier nature of the shoe does minimize the use case a little bit. I think you're down to sort of like a racer there with like a wide surface area and a little bit more stability. Certainly not a half marathon shoe for my liking, or a tool for training. I think it will get a lot of use. I think you could use it on a daily sort of basis, though is it a little bit too close to the SC Elite V4 to mean that we need both models. Certainly not the nimblest in operation, but it's a smooth plated offering perhaps. In the middle, if those runners just can't utilize something like the Vaporfly or another one of those very narrow shoes, they want a bit more surface area up front and they don't like those very narrow heels. I'll give it a 2.7 out of 3 for the midsole so far, limited only by heft of the rest of the shoe. Outsole now. I think New Balance have learnt their lessons from some of the quite poor outsoles we've had over the last few years. At least this time the rubber isn't sort of sunk into the exposed midsole foams, but the grip's really good here. They've got a slightly different pattern and they've stretched that rubber right back into the end of the heel. So I think durability will be okay, though it is a very soft rubber here in the SC Trainer 3. They've made the energy arc sort of cutout area here a little bit bigger, so you'll be able to pick up larger rocks this time. I do jest a little bit. You'll still get some debris caught in there, but I don't think it's going to be a massive problem. So slightly better rubber application here, though I still miss the fantastic outsole that we had in the RC Elite V1. That triangular rubber here is sort of goading me here at the back. You can see the pattern here. It's exactly like the outsole on that shoe looked, which was absolute dynamite. New Balance just obviously taking the Michael out of me somewhat. The shoe seemed to perform pretty well in wet conditions as well as dry. Only tried it on road and pavement. I don't think anyone's going to be utilising this thing on gravel or any sort of uneven terrain in camber. And they haven't put too much rubber in here that it removes any sort of flex up front as well, so a little bit of movement. So bit worried about the rubber, quite soft to the touch, especially in the heel area here. So I've got a few doubts about how long that's going to last, especially as this one's more of a trainer. I'll give it a 2.6 out of 3 for the outsole so far. Okay, value-wise, this one, £229 at retail is a huge amount for a shoe that is intended as a training sort of partner. I mean, it's quite frankly insane. I got them for £195 with a discount. It's a touch easier to stomach, but it is still a lot of money for this type of shoe. When you convert £229 into dollars, you get $290. So I went and had a look at how much it actually costs over in America, and this one's retailing for $180. So I don't quite understand why we've got such a discrepancy, why there's such a huge void between the two prices there. $180 here is about 142 quid in the UK, so we've got a massive increase over the price that you're paying over in America. Not sure why that is. So is it a good shoe? Yeah, I think it is, but is it £229 worth? Well, no, it certainly isn't. The shoe's well put together, I have to say, and it should be at that price really. The cheap insole though, not really keen on that whatsoever. Thin, pointless addition, and I found my foot was just sort of slipping around inside the shoe. It's not glued in either. I mean, that might be a good thing because you can easily remove it. Build is decent, though there is a little bit of spacing here around where the two parts of the foam join up. Other areas of the shoe are well positioned and well put together, and in fairness, that's what I expect from New Balance. Just not blown away by this one in terms of value for money, especially when other plated options like Puma's Deviate Nitro 3 are retailing at much less, and they're a trainer too, with probably better or at least confirmed durability in the outsole. Similar weight as well, so you can draw your own conclusions there. I'll give this one a 2.4 out of 3 for value after my initial runs. So I did request whether viewers wanted to see a review of this, and they certainly did. I will keep on trying and persisting with it. There's just a few little issues that I've got to figure out with it. I do like the midsole, it's really nice and smooth, and I like the upper as well. I just have that issue with the heel. If I've totaled the scores out correctly, that gives us 10.3 out of 12 after my initial runs in the New Balance Fuel Cell SC Trainer 3. Are you a New Balance fan? Do you want me to pick up some more New Balance offerings for review? Let me know how you've been getting on in the SC Trainer 3 down in the comments. Musical interlude for you. Very excited to see that Neil Young's announced an Archive 3. So this is like another part of his kind of career. Lots of unreleased material on this one, and some of my favourite albums fall into this kind of period that the archive will cover. He's released a few tracks from it that I've not heard. Winter Winds is really great. Whimsical country number. Some really cool pedal steel in there. And this wonderful like woody production sound. Obviously they're all in a room at once just playing, and I always like those tracks. They just feel natural. It feels like there's some emotion going into the music rather than it being this sort of pixel perfect delivery. I think at times in Neil Young studio recordings, the musicians had only heard the tracks like 2 or 3 times and then they had to record them. So it's definitely true of this one. Really lovely drum sounds in this one. Everything's captured just perfectly. Good use of the old fiddle as well. So if you like your old school country, and I'm not talking about Taylor Swift now, go and check this one out. Winter Winds from Neil Young. Thanks for tuning in, people. Hope you enjoyed today's review. Hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up like. Drop us a super thanks as well to help support the channel on a more ad hoc basis. My name's Eddbud, and I'll be seeing you